Hello, you. Welcome to Geekism, and welcome back to a Meander file. These are time-lapse episodes for Meanderville, a highly themed, master-planned park in Planet Coaster 2. In the last episode of the series, it was a POV of the dark ride, Astralore, with incredible music by Alex. And yeah, we're just kind of finishing off that the exterior of that ride, and then also starting to transition into the next area. And honestly, if I'm going to be honest with you now, this is a bit of a palate cleanser, because I feel basically since gift shops came out, which I kind of forget when that was now, it was before Sorcery Pack, pretty much all I've done is interiors, either the gift shop interiors or obviously Astralore, the dark ride was an interior. So I'm having to have a bit of a break from that kind of stuff and do some exterior work. It means that the video isn't going to be quite as punchy. It's a lot of fencing, it's a lot of planting, it's a lot of tidying up those little green triangles you get where the paths meet and what have you. But it is still, for me personally, a very enjoyable process, and it is a good sort of change of pace from working in a tighter, much more detailed area. I still like to think there's a lot of detail going on here. You can let me know, obviously. But yeah, the exteriors kind of fill up quicker, I guess. So it's nice to be able to sort of step away from that more sort of micro building area of a interior, just to kind of zoom out a little bit, get some fresh air, so to speak, and work on the exterior. So this is some of the queue line for Astralore. It's a little bit all over the place. Some of the queue line for Astralore, some of the exit line for Astralore, the entrance area for the ride itself, some of the spacing from the main plaza where I was going to say Colosseum, where the carousel is from. And then over and across that way there. So there's a little bit of everything there. We're zipping around all over the place, but hopefully you'll enjoy some custom fencing. Custom fencing I have a bit of a love-hate relationship with it, really. It's one of my favourite things to do in the game, but it can get a little bit repetitive. But I do think it's worth the squeeze, I guess. The juice is worth the squeeze. I think once you're done with it, it really sort of elevates a build. Not to say that the in-game fencing isn't good. Actually, the in-game fencing is pretty good in Planet Coaster 2. Better than the first one, definitely. And some of the options are really quite nice. I would love more. Give me 20 more fences. I'd take them. Different styles. Just some more sort of classic ones. Some more sort of that are just like wrought iron. Things like that. Stuff that's a little less themed. I feel like I'm a broken record at this point, but I love the more sort of less themed stuff because I think you can do a lot more with it. You can use it in a lot more interesting ways. One of the things in Planet Coaster 2, I feel, is actually the scenery for the most part does a really great job at feeling less themed. Yes, obviously, it has a bit of a vibe to it, but there's stuff in the Viking set, for instance, that just works really well as nice wood textures. There's stuff in the mythology set that just works really well as just old stuff in general. It isn't really tied necessarily to Greek, which I think is the inspiration behind it. So they do a really good job of that. Unfortunately, the fences, the benches, the tables, the trash cans, they're all still quite highly themed, to be honest with you. So we're still having to do a lot of work to generate our own versions. But I still think it's worth a mix of the two. So partly using custom fencing, partly using in-game fencing. I think you can use both and actually get a real nice medium in between there, and I think they actually turn out really well. Okay, so there's a little bit of custom fencing, and then we'll sort of complement that with some in-game fencing along the front of it. And yeah, I think if you just use all in-game fencing, it looks a little too basic. It looks a little flowy. And if you did all custom fencing can often look a little bit blockier, and also you'd lose the will to live, I think, if all you did was custom fencing, because you sometimes, especially on the nice curvy paths that have some height elevation changes, the in-game fencing is obviously much easier to use there. Okay, working on the entrance then, I wanted a very understated entrance for the rides in Meanderville. I very much want to sort of go with the newer design aesthetic of newer high-budget parks, where a lot of the theming is a lot more in-world. So yes, there's still signage going up saying where stuff is. Actually, the final version looks a little bit different. I've just realised to this time lapse. yeah, it ends up not looking quite like that because we have to add in a wait time sign. So you'll see the final version of it at the end. So, but yeah, I wanted to sort of, still keep the safety sign, still keep the wait times, still have obviously an entrance where a staff member would stand, all that sort of stuff I wanted to keep, but I didn't want a huge sign that, said Astralore, Motion Dark Ride or whatever. I wanted to kind of go for, if you look at how they do it in sort of like Pandora or Galaxy's Edge, or a lot of Universal Studios stuff now is doing it as well, Epic Universe, and it's just a little bit more understated, and obviously it's the entrance to a ride, but it's built into the world a bit more, built into the lore a bit more, and I think that's a really interesting concept. I don't know whether I like it. I did find myself last time I was in Florida sometimes struggling to find where the rides were, especially when you're running around trying to use your fast passes or the genies or whatever it's called now, I forget. So I don't know whether I love the idea, but I do think it's an interesting idea, and it's different to basically how I've played the game before, which is normally have a big flashy sign above the entrance. So I wanted to sort of keep something a little bit more understated and I feel like that's going to work with the high budget theme of Meanderville, because that's what a lot of high budget parks are doing now. All right, what's next? I'm building a statue. I think this turned out pretty good. Every time I work with art shapes like this, I feel like I need to let people know that I'm really no expert with this kind of stuff. I muddle through it until it looks good enough. I'm no SP Ridley, I'm no Taggy, who do amazing stuff with art shapes, both of them. But I think this turned out pretty well, and I think it reads well as a stone statue of Vesper, the character that is meant to be walking around, but we actually have him in the ride set up as a real fancy animatronic. So I placed one outside here just so I've got a bit of space to work with. But yeah, this is he'll be going away. We're not going to have walk around characters. I think maybe we'll do some meet and greet character spots if we can figure out how to keep the characters still easily. The thing you used to be able to do in Planet Coaster 1, I don't think that works anymore in Planet Coaster 2. You used to be able to build a work roster and have it empty, basically. So make a roster with one ride in it and then delete the ride, and then any staff members that went into that roster would just stand still because they've got nowhere to go, basically. And it was awesome. You could use it on vendors, and you could have them standing in stores that weren't functional. If you built some midway or something, or even have them sort of hanging around as like photo spots or guest services, all that kind of thing. It was really awesome. And you could do it with the character models as well. The meet and greet stuff. You could have them standing still in a corner, and it looks like guests would come over and meet them. The whole characters wandering around the park, I feel like that's a bit of a handover from Roller Coaster Tycoon. That's what they always used to do in that. The pandas and the tigers and what have you, they would just potter about. I just don't really see that very often in parks, certainly not in like a high budget park like this. It's the character meet and greets are very often considered an attraction. If you go and look at meeting Mickey Mouse, for instance, whilst there are characters that wander around Disneyland, California, I don't think you see Mickey Mouse wander around. I think he's still going to be a meet and greet. It's sort of C tier, D tier stuff that's milling around. Obviously, don't get me wrong, it doesn't mean that they're bad. You have very memeable characters like the Evil Queen, for instance. Obviously, goes viral often just wandering around and talking crap to people, which is awesome. But really, if it's, for the most part, these kind of characters are set to one side, even with a small queue line. For instance, last time we went, we waited half an hour, I think, to meet Winnie the Pooh, which was very worth it, of course. Here you can see our little monkey character. I don't think we ever named him, honestly. He makes an appearance in the Astralore Dark Ride. I didn't really talk about him in the building of Astralore. It was a very last minute thing. In fact, I'd actually filmed the POV, and watching through it, I felt like the ride needed something to sort of tie it together a little bit. The plan was always for it to just be, lots of cool scenes. But I felt like it needed something to have a bit of a narrative running through it throughout. So I had a look around. I went back and watched Symbolica again. Obviously, heavy inspiration from Symbolica for this ride. And they have the I can never remember his name. The little guy. He's like a jester type fellow from Efteling. He sort of goes through and seemingly sort of plays tricks and is a little mischievous, I think. I don't know, it's obviously not in English, but he's sort of running through. And then I also went and watched Phantom Manor, which, again, an incredible dark ride. And they have, I think his name is Claude, a little monkey sort of going through, and again, sort of playing tricks, opening up Pandora's box and having all sorts of bits of mischief there. And I just like that idea of like a little kooky character that will appear a little bit. So we made our own little monkey with a fez in sort of honor of that Phantom Manor version, and Mystic Manor, excuse me, sorry, not Phantom Manor, that's the one at Disneyland Paris. Mystic Manor, and have him sort of appear throughout, sort of have him in a basket at the door in the initial scene, and then have him sort of scared by the spooky corridor, have him coming up out of some papers in the observatory, have him floating in the water in the whale scene, and then having spinning around as the wizard spins you around into the final spinning tunnel scene. So it's just a nice way to sort of tie it all together, and I think it worked out pretty well. Again, I'm no expert with art shapes, that sort of stuff is a little beyond me. I do my best, and I think I do an okay job. But yeah, I really liked it how it came out, and then luckily it was just a case of using one of them, turning all the pieces grey, and it becomes a statue. I was talking to a few people about it at the time how I would love to see like a texture setting on art shapes. That'd be so good to be able to say, let's not have them so shiny. I feel like they're not as shiny as they were in the first game, but just being able to set them to have a matte finish, or a slightly textured finish, maybe using the world texture technique they use on some of the rocks, where the texture itself doesn't scale with the rock. It's almost like it's always there, and the rock sort of moves into the texture. I don't know how to describe it. I'm not a game dev, but that would be really great for art shapes. So you could place art shapes together, and the texture would carry over onto one onto the other. Just give us a set of them where they're all lit. Give me a set of them where it's smooth. Give me a set of them where there's a slight sort of texture to them. I think that would be incredible. You'd be able to do so much. Saying that, though, even just using the regular art shape that is a little shiny, I still think once you've got it in place as a statue, it reads as a statue, and I don't think it's that bad. So happy enough with it. Here then, working on a bit of a garden. Again, Googling a lot of sort of gardens in parks in Europe and just seeing what sort of thing you can get away with, and this sort of bed with some topiary seems pretty standard. And again, my idea with this is I don't want this sort of stuff everywhere, because I think if it was everywhere it would be too high budget, require too much maintenance. So for every part that I do something a little bit more niche, a little bit more sort of cultivated, there'll be another area that's a little bit more sort of left to grow, just sort of bushes and trees and that kind of thing. So that little area there is our sort of nice bit of nature for this ride, and everywhere else around it is just mostly just tree lines. Again, watching a lot of videos of places like Alton Towers in the UK, just seeing how much of the park is just paths through trees. Like it really happens a lot. I think perhaps now I'm a bit more used to North American parks, where it's all a little bit more compact, and there's kind of stuff everywhere, and you don't actually walk that far to get to anything. It's all really closed in. But going over and looking at some European parks, you really just see how there's a lot of space where you are just walking. Efteling especially, the entrance to Efteling, you go through the main gates and then you can walk for 10-15 minutes before you see a ride, and that's something I kind of want to get across with Meanderville. I like that. I like the fact that it's sort of putting the park into theme park, and there's some areas where it is just pretty and nice and foliage to walk around and enjoy yourselves. I'm sure there are American parks that do this. I imagine some of the smaller Midwest parks do this, places like Dollywood or places like that. I'm sure they lean into their nature and their settings a little bit more, but like I say, a lot of my theme park experience from the last sort of decade has been mostly North American stuff, like the Six Flags parks, Florida, Disney and Universal there, that kind of thing, where space feels like it's a bit more of a premium, and they don't really get away with just, this is just a nice little walk. Again, if you go and watch some walkthroughs of Alton Towers, for instance, you can spend a day walking around that place and just looking at beautiful foliage and beautiful scenery and not really ride much. So that's kind of what I want to try and get across here with Meanderville. And again, like I said at the beginning, it's just a nice change of pace from the pretty heavy detailed interiors, but I'm still really happy with what I come out with. And what I'm also really trying to do in Meanderville is work with some subtle height variation into the pathing that you can see here. This whole queue line just slightly raises up and then goes back down again, and throughout the park I'm trying to do that a lot more, have some slight height variations, nothing crazy. This isn't a terrain park, it's but it is something I didn't do in Pinewood. Pinewood was very flat. Most of my parks, to be honest, have been very flat. It's just easier, and it isn't really the sort of thing I think about naturally. I have to really make an effort to say, no, this would be good if there was a slight height variation change here. One, just for interest, but then also like logistically, it very often happens. It's, the chance of you just having a huge flat space to work with is pretty slim. So so trying to do that a little bit with all the queue lines, even just moving from one area to the other. The whole pirate area is lifted up and is about sort of 10 feet higher than the rest of the park, and it's just a subtle change, but it means you get some really interesting view lines you can see from the main plaza that we're calling Discovery Way, by the way. I only mentioned that because I've started to put a few signs around the place pointing people into certain directions. So from Discovery Way by the carousel there, you can look over and see some of the pirate area, and it's slightly raised up, and it just means you don't sort of lose eyesight or eye lines. You get some interesting looking angles to look at. So there's the exit shop here then. This was originally a face painting booth, which I've copied and moved over and just had to edit it slightly to get a counter inside of it, and we're going to turn this into a balloon and noisy crap that kids beg you for counter. I know really that most balloon sales in parks like this are just a person holding a load of balloons. That would be real neat. I would love to see that added to the game. That'd be really cool, just to see somebody, a balloon seller holding a pile of balloons and just wandering around or having a space. That would be a real great addition. So I know this is maybe a little overkill, but I just really wanted to get some bit of colour in here. These smaller spaces where it's not really a full plaza, but the path is a little wider than just walking through. These are the kind of things I'll be pottering around the place, face painting places, henna tattoos, balloons, that kind of thing. And then what I mean by the noisy thing that kids always ask for, Disney love these things. It's just like a wand, just like a stick that lights up and bubbles come out of it. Xander collared me for one last time we went. And it really blew my mind. It was like $50 or something for this piece of crappy plastic. Exactly the sort of thing I'm thinking of, I'm sure. It just lights up and throws bubbles at the top, and the kids buy them and wave them around you at the fireworks or what have you. That's kind of what I wanted to get across there. So, yes, that would normally probably just be a person standing with balloons, but with those sticks as well, I feel like it warrants having its own little store. And again, it's just nice little things to break up the path when there isn't enough for a full building, but there is enough space for something, and it needs something to sort of not look too empty. I've been watching a lot of footage of Adventure World, which is Disneyland Paris's sort of refit of their studios park, and it's really quite beautiful. Again, it's one of those parks where you're walking for quite a while before anything really happens. I kind of dig that. I think they call it Adventure Way, the sort of main plaza strip. It's really beautiful, and it has a lot of these sort of little pavilions, little pagodas that seemingly don't do anything but could be there for something in the future, could have somebody selling popcorn out of one, or maybe even like a meet and greet in them. So that sort of inspired me to go back and have a look at that and see if that's something we can implement here into Meanderville, because I really like those. It looks quite high budget just to have these spaces that are there for when they need them, kind of thing. And also the roof lines of that place are perfect, and I think have solved the problem I was kind of having with the main street of Meanderville, where I have two sort of very distinct styles there at the moment, one of which being the Epic Universe. I forget what their main area is. Port of Adventure, or I can't remember, but some of the buildings are in that style, and then some of them are more traditional sort of Main Street buildings, and I've been struggling to sort of tie them together, and the beautiful sort of tin mansard roofs of Adventure Way will work for both and tie over. So expect a video from Meanderville in the next week or two where we do that, basically, because I'm very inspired by that stuff at the minute, and basically as soon as this episode goes out, I'm going to go back into the game and start working on those. So yeah, that was a bit of a speed bump for me in that area, a little bit of a sort of what's the words, writer's block there, I guess, creative block, and then watching this the stuff coming out of Paris has really got me invigorated again, and I definitely feel like it'll work really well in that space. This bridge is very loosely based on some of the stonework and fencing found in the starting area of that Adventure Way. With there's a beautiful bronze statue of Peter Pan sat up on a pillar that looks a little bit like this bridge. But I'm glad we got this bridge done. It's been there for a long time. Really wanted to box it in. Again, sort of slight magical, slight Astral Aura vibes, but still a little bit generic because it is just sort of a main thoroughfare. This is going to take you up to the pirate area, and then it's going to take you through Testudo, and even carry on up to what do we call the steampunky arcane punk area? I forget now. Zephyrberg. There we go. So there we go. So there you can see the queue line there with the weird statue that we built a couple of episodes ago. This sort of quite natural pond area here. Obviously it's still man-made. I still wanted it to look like rock had been brought in to sort of build this out, but I like the fact that there's just this nice little bit of water that sort of moves under the bridge there. Water is very important in theme parks. I think it helps keep the air cool, it helps break up the space, and I'm going to try and get lots of little bits of water. There won't be a big lake like Pinewood had, where the whole thing was built around a lake, but we will have lots of little areas of water just to kind of help break up the spaces. There's a interesting angle of the queue line. I think I was feeling fairly artistic when I recorded this one. Finally, there's the updated entrance, and now has the wait times in it for the standby and zoom pass entrance, and the little sign there with the safety information, expectant mothers, back pain, neck pain, all that kind of thing. Thank you so much for watching. Hope you've enjoyed this one. I'll see you in the next one. Be good.